Okay, this is a good one. The Disney. Jenna Ellis has taken some flack on Twitter because she has the audacity to come out and defend, she's not defending Disney. I think she genuinely believes, and I think she is defending what she understands the Constitution to be. Cernovich had a tweet, and I don't want anyone, I was going to respond to the tweet, but I don't know anyone thinking I'm like trying to dunk on Cernovich or trying to score points. Twitter reads sass. Cernovich said, Disney's a big company. It's got politicians. It's got a multi-billion-dollar company. It's got lawyers. They don't need, what did he say? Conservative influencers defending them. And I was going to respond, but it can't be done eloquently on Twitter. I don't think Jenna Ellis is defending Disney. She's defending what she thinks the Constitution represents. And that is, preventing reprisals, preventing legislation, preventing Congress from enacting law to punish for the exercise of First Amendment rights. Robert, this is the question now. So, there's a thorny question. Disney comes out and says, we disagree with DeSantis. We disagree with the Don't Say Gay bill, even though they're misrepresenting what it means, yada, yada. DeSantis and the Florida state legislature comes and passes a piece of legislation, but it's not that it deprives Disney of some tax benefits and self-governance privileges that they had. It's that it will not renew it as of 2023. So Disney has 1 year left of their tax benefits. They're effectively have been given or granted government powers over Disney, the municipal corporate village that is Disney. They could have their own fire department. They could levy taxes to pay for roads, whatever. They were given government powers as a privilege. That is now not going to be renewed as of June or July 2023. It passed the democratic process in Florida. And some people are saying, Scott Adams, Jenna Ellis, that this is effectively congressional reprisals for the exercise of free speech. And I'm torn. I say, like, not renewing privileges. I know that there's going to be the argument that it is a reprisal, or it could be a reprisal, and therefore it is the government sanctioning free speech. What is your take? First of all, if I mis-explained the actual tax benefit that Disney benefits from, correct me or specify. But what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I think from a legal perspective, Disney's got no case. So people who think Disney's got a case have not done enough actual First Amendment law. So as even The Intercept interviewed some liberal First Amendment lawyers that actually practice First Amendment law, said, no, Disney wouldn't win in a challenge. Because in order to show retaliatory prosecution, you have to show that the state legislatures, that every member of the state legislature that voted for this, or at least the majority, voted for it in order to specifically punish Disney and had no other policy purpose behind it. And that was the same with the governor signing. That hurdle, to my knowledge, that hurdle has never been met, evidentiary-wise, in a case. And the reason is, one, judges hate to inquire into motivations of legislation. This has come up in cases where people allege legislation was passed by bribery. Court said, can't get involved. Nope, doesn't matter. So if as long as it passed the legislature, even there, often whether a bill passed, the courts have said whatever Congress or whatever the legislative branch says determines it. To give an example, there's the 16th Amendment to the United States Constitution, the one authorizing the income tax. If you dig in, you find lots of problems with how that was purportedly added to the Constitution. What do you think the U.S. Supreme Court said? Think they were going to dig into that mess? Not a chance. They said if the archivist said it passed as part of the Constitution, final word, it's unreviewable. So it's because they are not going to get into the motivations of these legislators. That's never going to happen. Just look at the Trump cases where Trump is being targeted by the executive branch overtly, people who ran for office saying, I'm going to go and investigate him, elect me, then went and investigated him. Courts have said even that wasn't violated the First Amendment. And that's specific in particular. That's real evidence, not trying to guess what 60 plus House members and 20 plus senators and the governor was attempting to do. So what you end up doing is you've got to look at the law itself. Does the law itself on the face violate First Amendment rights? Well, the law itself doesn't even reference Disney. So it's hard for Disney to claim this law on its face is meant to retaliate against us when they're not even mentioned in it. That's problem one. Problem two is they also took out they took out all of the special districts before 1968. So they took out a half dozen other ones. So they're like, oh, we're all and the people that have and districts that have nothing to do with Disney. So in reality, they would never be able to prove, and a court wouldn't even allow them to kind of try to produce the evidence to prove a First Amendment violation. So it's going nowhere in the courts. Instead, Disney's looking at whether they can make a technical argument about whether it was in a special session versus a general session, whether it has to go to referendum, etc. So on the legal side, it won't work. But let's talk about the broader political side of it.
Well, hold on. One question first. It might also be relevant that, from what I understand, Robert, unless I'm wrong, it was a few years ago where it was sort of a bipartisan move to actually do this 3 years before this incident, or where Democrat politicians also wanted to strip Disney of their special privileges, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah. No, I mean the other fact that's relevant, even if they were willing to look at motivation, even if they were ignored that there's no facial violation here, this is clearly facially neutral, even if they ignored the fact that 5 other special districts were also stripped of it, even if they ignored that there are independent public policy reasons for this to be passed. The other aspect of this is, as you noted at the beginning, this is a privilege. Right? This is not a situation like, okay, Disney lobbied against us, let's impose a special tax on Disney. Disney now has to pay a 5% surtax on all their future profits, right? That would be a better, stronger argument, because they're right on the face of it. Somebody's getting treated. This is Disney no longer gets the special benefit of a special district that they lobbied for on false premises about 50 years ago. And when I say lobbied for on false premises, they were promising a bunch of things they never delivered on. And the other problem with this was Disney's policing. The reason why also it's relevant, like this is where you could have had a political motivation. You could say Disney is supporting groomer activities in schools.
So is this chat here? Is there any truth to this?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to get to. Disney was self-policing. So Disney got to have all the legal authority of a small town. This wasn't just about taxes. It was one critical thing is they could issue bonds, tax-free bonds, as if they were a municipality, right? So they got tax-free debt that they got to issue, which had a whole range of benefits for Disney. That's the more consequential financial one over time. And there'll be some complexity about transferring that debt to the local counties that they're a part of. But that can be done without too much hurdle. They have more than a year now to fix it. But Peter Schweitzer raised this problem back in the late 1990s. For example, people didn't know Disney was a key secret partner in one of the biggest pay-per-view porn sites that was out there in the 90s. Right? I mean, Peter Schweitzer, the great investigative reporter, he wasn't well known back then. He's much more well known now. Clinton Cash, the secret alliances of China, and so forth. But back then, in fact, the book is only available in hardcover. But he goes into how Disney had abused its special relationship power to cover up for a disproportionate child abuse problem on Disney. And if you think about it, right? I mean, even if Disney had no complicity or culpability whatsoever, Disney is going to be the kind of place where you're going to have, because where do you have broad access to children? If you're an abuser, you look for where you have opportunity. It's like, this is crime in nature. It's like the first time I was moving off campus at Yale, the cop said, here's what to look for. And he explained crime is a crime of opportunity. So don't pick an apartment in a neighborhood that doesn't have good lighting. Live in a residential place. Don't live in an apartment complex that you have to walk upstairs for. Things of this nature. And it was great advice. I mean, I lived right across from the Y. It turned out great, but that's another story for another day. But the same dynamic. Crimes are crimes of opportunities and particularly pedophiles and child abusers are really the ones aggressive. That's why they show up in foster homes. That's why they show up in, frankly, the priesthood. That's why they show up in a range of places. They have disparate access. And that's why they were going to show up in Disney. And now the key was, what did Disney do about it? Did Disney expose it? Did Disney prosecute it? No. Disney was covering it up, because look at it from Disney's perspective. Who's going to bring their little 6-year-old to Disney World if it's hey, let's meet the local pedo? It's not going to work well for Disney's marketing. So the reality is Disney's support of grooming in schools correlates to Disney's history of problems of protecting child abusers that is directly relevant to this law. So independent of all of the other grounds, the legislature in Florida and the governor of Florida, the good governor of Florida, had an absolute legal right and I would say duty to strip Disney of this special protection because it correlates to problematic criminal behavior taking place at Disney. And if you're Disney, do you think you're going to bring a suit and allow DeSantis to document and detail these issues? No. Disney will never sue on these grounds, is my early prediction. They'll figure out some other way to deal with it while they're dealing with their stock market, their stock going, because it turns out grooming isn't popular with parents.
Robert, this is why sometimes I think I'm smart, and then other times I realize I'm totally ignorant. Never even thought about having your own private security, your own private police, your own private. When I read about their own fire department, their own roads, I was like, okay, this sounds like what do they call it? A corporate city or an incorporated city?
It's a company town. It's an old school company town.
So, and have your own police and the issues. Yeah, I'm putting a lot of twos and twos together, and I don't like the number that it's adding up to. It's 2 + 2 + 2 is 6. So,
South Park portrayed Mickey Mouse in the way it did because it had a lot of truth in it. Right? Mickey Mouse is a criminal gangster in the South Park world that's randomly banging every animal that exists and is probably responsible for the pandemic, right? In the South Park world, right? But that's because there was deep truth. They often hint at real truths with some of these people. Even, where I don't agree with their criticism, there's usually a truth to that criticism.
I just brought up a chat that said, Viva, are you a right-wing extremist? Well, I guess it depends if you ask Wikipedia. Yeah, I'm the most Canadian leftist, whatever. Forget the identity side. No, I'm not. What I am, I believe, is a rational human being. If that makes me a right-wing extremist, okay. But Robert, okay, so...
Well, speaking of the political weaponization of the court process, what Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, and Madison Cawthorn are having to go through is just insane.
Okay, before we even get there, I want to say one thing in defense of Jenna Ellis. I said it on Twitter. If you only respect someone because they agree with you or reaffirm what you believe, you never actually respected that person. You just respected your own opinion. I believe Jenna Ellis is sincere. Until she proves herself to be insincere or dishonest, I believe she's sincere. She might be mistaken. But to rail on someone, to go look for all sorts of ulterior motives why she's defending Disney, take for granted you all liked her before she took a position that you disagree with. Don't start looking to demonize the individual just because they part ways with you on one thing that you believe firmly in. I like Jenna. I think she's honest. I think she's smart. I think she might be wrong. But then again, I don't really think I have my own opinion. I've heard Robert's argument, and I'm what's the word? I'm influenced by it. But I don't think ill of Jenna for being courageous enough to take the position she's taking, knowing what people are going to say about it. So just, don't be mean.
She has a strong independent position. Now, a lot of your National Review types, I don't take seriously because a lot of them are just, they come from the corporate whore side of conservative lawyers. And so some of those I don't take seriously at all. Your what is baseball crank, that loser, those kind of people I have no respect for. Your National Review writers, none. Because many of these same people are cheering the individual sanctions being issued on people based on whether it's a country, whether it's a company from a country, or the individual has that ancestry. It's like, hold on a second. It's wrong to use someone's political actions as a grounds to deprive them of property unless they're Russian. Then it's okay. I mean, that's the same. So these people are hypocrites. They're frauds. They're phonies. They're just, some of them are war whores. Some of them are corporate whores. There are other people, Jenna Ellis, Scott Adams, others, have their sincere beliefs. I disagree with how they apply it in this context, but I don't doubt the sincerity of their beliefs.